that process because the campus is getting a new provost, and Lisa needs to work with the provost to figure out what our path and directions are. But it is time to start thinking about that. In that 2015 document, we identified 7 goals. The ones that the faculty members of the ULC were most interested in discussing was goal number 3, which is developing a comprehensive scholarly communications program. They had any questions as to what do we mean when we talk about scholarly communications? FYI, the answer to that question will be on the April ULC agenda. Carrie Nelson will be giving a presentation on what her office has been doing and what they hope to do in the future. And again, ULC meetings are open meetings, so anyone who wants to attend that meeting will be at Eagling. Just word of warning. Back to where we are in the current strategic process. So Lisa, who's sitting in the back, I hope I don't misquote you, commented on what she's learned in the 6 months of her listening sessions. And I believe there's a point made at the all-staff meeting as well, which is the library does we have fantastic collections and fantastic services. We don't do a fantastic job of promoting ourselves or tuning our own horn. We pride ourselves on being seamless as far as the patrons go, but that means they don't always know everything that the library is actually doing, and we need to figure out how to address that. And members of ULC had a lot of suggestions about how the ULC members can work with us to become advocates for the rest of the campus, how we can better advertise our services and highlight our contributions. This ties in well to the university's PR program, where they're trying to identify to both to the camp, to the state, and to the people with the purse strings, universities' contributions towards making higher education affordable and things like that. And also something that the faculty were unaware of is how much UW-Madison does for UW system libraries. For example, administering the ALMA integrated library system, managing interlibrary loan and campus delivery. So we do a lot of great things. We need to focus on letting folks know that, in fact, that the library is behind a lot of the services that they rely on. This month's ULC meeting will be in the law building, not on the 7th floor, not in the law library, on March 27th. The focus of that meeting will probably be ULC administrative stuff, what's their charge, what's their relationship with library admin, also a report from the Memorial Library Committee, which is separate from the University Library Committee. And then, as I said, the April meeting, which will be at Eagling, will focus on scholarly communications. Any questions or corrections for those of you who were at ULC? Okay. Oops.
And yes, I should mention that there are snacks, so I encourage you to take part in the snacking. So next we have academic staff assembly update from Tam Shiba and Rebecca Payne. Can you turn it over?
Okay. So just as another introduction, the Academic Staff Assembly is an elected body currently made up of 112 districts and is one of the governance bodies that advises the Chancellor. District assignments are based on job code, division, and department. Representatives are elected for 2-year terms. And all assembly meetings are open to the public and held in room 272 Bascom Hall from 3:30 to about 5 p.m. The meeting schedule and other details are always available from acstaff.wisc.edu. So for the February 11th meeting notes, UW Police Department Chief Kristen Roman talked about what UW is doing to address safety around active shooter incidents. And along with developing training and a training video, UWPD is working on adding classroom access controls to a total of 1,800 classrooms and increasing security camera coverage. Chief Roman cautioned against using one's own access controls like door shims purchased online since they can interfere with accessibility. And similar to fire safety preparedness and locating exits and fire extinguishers, the chief encourages faculty, instructors, students to consider their instruction spaces in the context of an active shooter incident based on available training. You can sign up for training through talent.wisc.edu, so go to catalog at the top and then choose the safety and security category. And University Health Services personnel were consulted in the creation of the training, as UWPD is sensitive to the idea that the training topic may be disturbing to students and staff. But UHL personnel are not typically present during the training itself, though the chief said that they would consider the idea based on questions received during the assembly meeting. Also, the assembly passed the resolution regarding salary ranges for the title and total compensation project, recommending that the title and total compensation project create salary ranges that are sufficiently broad to encompass full career progression for academic staff positions where title changes are not the normal part of career progression. Accreditors are coming the week after spring break to begin the reaccreditation process for the university. And finally, Provost Mangelsdorf is leaving to become president of the University of Rochester after the spring semester. Rebecca? I didn't check it out.
So I'm reporting on the meeting that took place yesterday afternoon, March 11th. So we heard from Chancellor Rebecca Blank. She remarked that applications are up by 3%, and that high quality applications have been received. She talked about investment dollars in the schools and colleges, as well as central investment priorities. We heard about accessibility, affordability, maintaining and growing staff excellence, cluster hires, and new educational opportunities such as early start program, gap year programs, 3-year degree programs, and online options. She mentioned the biennial budget, that the government released the budget on February 28th, and she requested $150 million for the UW system, and 2% pay increases. And she also said that the capital budget, all projects that were submitted were included. There were 2 memorial resolutions, one for Jackie DeWalt and another for Merceal Lee. Jackie DeWalt was the Director of External Relations, Partnerships, and Development for the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Educational Attainment. And before that, she was the Director of the People Program for over 10 years. Merceal Lee was the founding director of the Chancellors and Powers Knapp Scholarships Program. And so that those programs have created educational opportunities for 2,600 students, underrepresented, minority, disadvantaged undergraduate students. There's some announcements that were made by ASEC. One is that the ASEC election ballot is open until Tuesday, March 19th. The Academic Staff Institute is happening March 27th, and the registration deadline closes this Friday, March 15th. The last thing I'll say is that 3 years ago, in 2016, there was a staff work-life survey that was done, and there's a plan to redo that in April 2019, so next month. And there was a resolution in support of that work-life survey that passed at the meeting yesterday. Tom, do you have anything to add? So Tom, Pam, and I are all representatives to academic staff.
Was the survey just for academic staff or for everyone?
There's a Wisely survey that was done with faculty, and then academic staff and university staff followed suit. So actually, university staff has not surveyed. Right?
Yeah,
there's the recommendation.
It started as the Wisely survey, and it was adapted for academic staff, and then we've done it once. And about 3 years ago. So this will be the second time. And I think it's gotten a little better. Like there were some questions I think that academic staff responded to as this is too much, too faculty oriented. So how does that apply to me? And so and you know, Wisely is what is women in science and engineering. Yeah. So you know, it comes out of women faculty. But, and university staff was offered the opportunity to edit the survey and make it.
Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Sam and Rebecca. Is this picking up at all? Or should I just continue projecting it's not really picking up? Okay.
I just wasn't speaking.
I don't know if it's actually is it picking me up?
It
is picking me up, so maybe just hold the mic really close to you. Our next update is from Heather Schumann. She has a professional concerns update, and I just realized I did not put Cassie update. Do you have any Cassie updates today too? Okay.
Okay, is that, can you hear me now? Maybe it's
When
just
you held it really close.
I could speak lower. So I'll speak loudly too. So the only thing I wanted to say as the Cassie update, I know we get a lot of emails, and Rebecca also pointed it out, but I just want to make sure everyone saw the email about the Academic Staff Institute. And like Rebecca said, the registration deadline is this Friday. It's $18. And it will be on March 27th. Some of the interesting breakout sessions are an active career management. There'll be an ASPRO legislative update, dealing with stress, focusing on your circle of influence, inclusivity for LGBTQ+ populations, more than rhetoric, maximize your benefits, early and mid-career retirement planning, and what you need to know about the title and total compensation project. So looks like some good breakout sessions. And then for professional concerns, we don't have too much of an update. We have started this year sending out monthly reports that are just going to be top trends, sort of general issues that come up at our listening sessions, which are our Ad 15 sessions, which we'll have one following this meeting in room 362. So that we'll have the room until, they'll start after this meeting, we'll have the room till 12:30. So if people have issues, concerns that they want to bring to the Professional Concerns Committee, we'll be there to listen. And the intent is to amplify staff voices, try to find channels for change, see what's possible. Right, and then be transparent in that with our monthly reports that then will aggregate into a yearly report as well, so that we're kind of tracking the concerns that staff are having and trying to just amplify them. So, any questions about the monthly reports or the goals of professional concerns in the listening session? That's all I have.
Thanks, Heather. And actually, I should mention that one of our updates today, the one that Anne's going to be giving on behalf of Human Resources, came directly out of one of the professional concern reports. So this is having an impact. I think it's great that these sessions are being held and Professional Concerns is reporting this stuff out. Next, Kara Calabrese is going to give the Treasury update on behalf of Pamela, who could not be here today.
So here's the treasurer's report. We started out with $100 in our savings and $1,533.24. We had some expenditures in January and February on food, $21.08. And I believe we always like to mention, if you have receipts, turn them in. We enjoy seeing updates. And we ended with $100 in savings, and in checking was $1,512.16.
Easy enough. Okay, next we have a programming update from Amy Glassell and Beth Harper. Or just Beth Harper.
Yeah. I'm going to do this from memory, so hopefully I remember things right. March 15th, that's Friday, we have Eat Talk Run. It is noon to 1 for us people who are not morning people. And it will be at Steenbach Library. So different venue. We're taking advantage of being over at Steenbach. Dave Bloom will be talking about the mobile maker kits. Is that the right term? Oh, good. There we go. Actually, it says up there, oh yeah, so we have Rena Yehuda Newman, who is the first ever official student historian at the archives program. So they will be giving talk about what they've done at the student. This is a switch. Kat Fallon will be talking the next week from the administrator kind of view of the student historian project. And then Michaela Sullivan-Fowler talking about the historical exhibit they have on the 1918 pandemic flu epidemic. And the other big thing, so we keep talking about the high tea. That is April 24th, 2:30 to 4:30 in Lake Hall in the Harrison Parlor. You will be getting an invitation about that shortly, but in the meantime, we have sent out the nomination survey for Librarians Assembly Awards. We have 11 awards. We hope that you nominate early and often, nominate any of your colleagues. We are trying to kind of focus it on things that have been, things your colleagues have done in the last year. It's not necessarily a cumulative award, but cool things that your colleagues have done in the last year. Anyone can nominate, anyone can win the award among university and library academic staff. We do ask for a few words at least about why these people that you're nominating are worthy of it, just because the people who end up, well, it's by design to make it sound like it's random, but it's Librarians Assembly Steering Committee members and members of the program committee who choose the awards, and that group doesn't know everybody on campus and isn't necessarily familiar with every colleague's work. So we do ask for at least a few words describing what they've done and why you think they should be given a certain award. And there's a new award. Well, which one? Oh, yes. So we've reworked. It used to be the Alma Maven, but we realized we have lots of library systems for us to deal with. And so we now have the Library System Jedi Award. And so if you know someone who's really good at not just Alma, but they could be good at Iliad or Hood Guides or Redmine, Aeon, WordPress, and LAS, which exists. So there is, that's the biggest modification of awards. Are there any questions?
There are links on, in case you can't find that email, there are links now in several places on the Librarians Assembly website. And if you don't know how to get to the Librarians Assembly website, if you go to the almost any part of the staff webpage on the right-hand menu, down below in community, there's a link to Librarians Assembly.
All right, thank you. And I will give a shout out to Mai John, who is our stalwart committee member, and thank goodness we have her.
Thank you, Beth and Amy. Next, we have an update from Human Resources. Anna Rupilon actually got in touch with us to talk about some of those things that came out of the Professional Concerns Report from January. So she's going to talk a bit about the interview process and onboarding.
Works for me. All right, well, thanks for having me. Yeah, so I was just following up on one of the reports, I think it was from January, that there were some questions about interviews, how we handle those, and onboarding. And so I just thought I'd do a quick review of how we handle things. For everybody, just so you know, we actually have a recruitment tab under the admin page on the website, which actually has everything that I'm going to kind of talk about today. And so this kind of will just kind of give you a general idea of what we do. First thing I will say is the checklist is probably your best bet to see how we handle all our interview processes. It's a big, long list, but it really literally goes through step by step how we handle our interviews within GLS. We really do try to keep it a uniform process for every single hire, and that is academic staff, limited, that is also for university staff. We try to do the same process for everything. Obviously, because we handle things differently, sometimes we have presentations for certain positions, things change a little bit here and there, but we really do try to work to make sure that everything is uniform across the board. First step is we do try to have a balanced search committee. So when I send out all those messages asking for people to join a committee, search committee, please do so. Please encourage others to do so. Please encourage people that you supervise to do so. They are great opportunities to get to meet other people and to take part in a really important process that we have. And we do try to put a university staff member, an academic staff member. We try to have a couple of people from the unit that we're hiring from, but we do try to get outside sources as well. So oftentimes you could be on a committee that has nothing to do with what you actually do day to day in your work. And that's great because you're that person that they're in that search committee that's looking at that person from a different lens. Helps a lot. I joke with the IT, they've got tons of acronyms, tons of different stuff in there that only certain people are going to understand. But that other person on that search is going to really look for the other skills, the leadership skills, how they're answering questions. So really think about, even if you know nothing about the job, think about joining that search committee. A couple other ways that we try to make it uniform is that we have equity advocates on every single search, which is kind of an extension of HR in many ways. But they do much more, where they're just kind of keeping the whole process on the level, making sure interview questions are really getting at what we want to ask, making sure that we're recruiting across several different ways, just to make sure that we're hitting the most diverse recruitment pool possible. So that's another way that we try to keep them uniform. A couple things during the process. We try to kind of follow the same process for every recruitment and every interview. That means we don't have meet and greets, informal meet and greets. Because that's where things can derail quickly on you, and you can start getting into questions that we may not help us decide if that's the person we want to hire. So when we have interviews, we try to set it up so that we have advanced questions set for every single meeting with the potential finalist or the candidate. I think that's kind of all I have. But I am open to any questions on this right now, on how we do a search. We have really worked hard in the last couple of years to really kind of nail it down and get it on a process and provide some transparency with some new tools to give everybody an idea of how it works. Any questions for me? Yes.
Do some, so I know in the past, some positions, the candidate might be taken out for lunch, there might be an invitation to lunch. And I've also heard recently that some may not have that. So are there things like, systems like that in place? I see that that's a place where you can not possibly diverge and be unethical or unequal, at least in terms of how the process is going through.
Yes, we do have lunches on several of them because obviously some people are here all day. We must feed them at some point. So we do really work to make sure that, and usually it's the equity advocate in this case, but they will have a conversation with people going to the lunch to make sure that you are staying in the professional realm. One of the easiest things to do is to kind of get into, so what are schools like? Or tell me about this area. It goes very personal very quickly, and then you're suddenly getting into things that could create bias, whether they have family or not, why they're moving here. So we do have conversations with people to make sure that those lunches stay kind of in that professional realm as much as possible. Yes.
So a follow-up. How do you know, because I know that some might be a half day and some might be closer to a full day. Obviously, closer to a full day, a 60-hour day, there's no lunch. So how are you decided? Is it decided where you're going to coach? Is it going to be a shorter, like half day versus a longer day?
That's up to the committee to decide. Okay. Because yes, sometimes we have presentations, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we'll only do a half day because there's not, just for whatever reason, the committee decides that they can get the information they need within a half day. So that's kind of that plan. And the other thing I forgot to mention is that every candidate that comes here for an interview does get to meet with HR. And so that kind of staves off a few of those more personal questions too, because as HR, we do not report anything back to the committee. So that's their opportunity to ask questions that might be a little more awkward or something they don't want to announce to the entire group. So they can ask that in that arena, and we won't say anything.
Oh, I was going to ask, who decides whether there's a presentation?
That's the committee's decision. Yeah, and the decision, they make up the topic, they make that plan. Yes.
I'm curious if you have a list of examples of places to promote the jobs, because I think that has been a challenge for search and screen committees to think outside of the places that we know, and then we're not getting diverse pools because we're not promoting in other places.
We have that conversation all the time. We do have certain places that we will automatically post the job. And we do have, especially depending on what the position is, because sometimes if you're looking at, for instance, we have the Ibero-American Studies, we might really concentrate on that area and some research that we have and resources that we have that way. We also have a list of schools that we send, especially our entry-level librarian positions. We have a list that we send out that's across the state, across the nation. What I would like to emphasize for people is that when we're posting on these job boards, which are great, and we can hit a diverse group from those, and we focus on certain areas at times, the other piece is that it's everybody's responsibility to recruit for us. So I really, if you see a position and you sit and you may have met somebody at a conference, or you know somebody from another institution that might have an avenue into to somebody else, to really use your networks, because that's where we get our best candidates, to be honest. Posting on job boards is pretty passive if you think about it. It's out there, but we're not really actively recruiting with that. That's just out there for somebody to see on ALA or WLA or SAA. So I really emphasize to committees to really work your own networks. And to use that actively when you go to conferences, that if you do meet somebody, make sure you're trading information so that we can use that in the future, because that might be our next next employee. Yes.
So on that specific note about recruiting people at conferences, how does that balance against our
I'm sorry, what was that?
how does it relate to our sort of general trend moving towards anonymous, blinded recruitment processes? You know, in terms of making a recommendation to the committee itself, like, or it seems like there's a little bit of a disconnect there.
So what I say is absolutely reach out to people. And if you send an email to somebody, as you know, especially if you're part of the search committee, there's nothing wrong with making a PDF that and putting that in the file, just showing that you've reached out to this person. When it does get trickier with the blinding now because you aren't seeing who they are, but to be honest, libraries are a small world, and when you start looking at one particular area or one particular unit, it gets even smaller. So you can look at those blinded applications and pretty much you could know who that is. So the committees, now that we've been blinding for a while, are starting to kind of think about at what point to talk about that you know this person. You know, and I haven't really set a standard for that, but there are conversations around whether you wait until you've gone through the whole applicant pool before you disclose, or you say, I know who this is, so I'm stepping out of this one. But that's really the committee can talk about, and we're just starting those conversations. So not saying in the near future we might have an actual standard for it, but right now we're just we're working through committees to make those decisions.
Were you going to say something briefly about this new onboarding committee thing?
Yeah. Did you have another question on the?
No, I was just making sure.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so, sorry, I got off track. Recruitment's kind of my thing. I like to do this. So, just another quick note on onboarding. Again, if you look here, we also after the hire area. So this is for supervisors mainly, but everybody obviously can take a look at it. It talks a little bit about, we have the mentorship program handout that's up there. We also have a new employee checklist for supervisors, so that really kind of walks through what you should do before they get hired, what steps you have to take, what things should you plan for in their first week, in their first couple of weeks, in their first month, in their first 6 months. So it really just kind of walks you through, yeah, you can see weeks 2 to 4, that kind of thing. There's also a new piece on there that was developed by the EDC onboarding committee that is called the worksheet, the new employee worksheet. Thank you, Amy. And that really kind of goes into some of the logistics piece, but it also goes into maybe conversations you want to have with the new employee about how do they learn? What are your what are your usual email things? Are you required to say thank you if you get something from them? How long, email's a big one. Do you expect a response within 24 hours, 48 hours? Those kind of pieces. And just conversations about preferred name, about how you want to look how you want to be in the staff directory, how they want to see their names in there. There's a lot of pieces in here. Yeah, you can see the email. But calendars, are you expected to use your calendar? Keep it up to date, those kind of pieces. So this is actually a great worksheet. We've gone through several revisions, but it's still out there for feedback if people have more ideas to add to it. And the last piece is, and I will put in the plug for Jessie Henderson, she is will be spearheading our new onboarding committee that's going to is going to be affiliated with EDC, but it also is going to kind of work outside that realm as well, just because of some of the projects we're going to do. And it is going to actually be kind of a fun committee to be on. We're going to be working on ways that we can get employees part of the community at large, because in the end, again, onboarding and bringing new employees into our culture is kind of a responsibility of all of us. So there'll be some kind of couple times a year, I think, meetings for them to come to, just to maybe a topic on acronyms in the libraries or something like that. But there also will be some things about if you're even not on the committee, but you're willing to be one of those people like, that can go across the new email and say, hey, I'm going to this meeting at Steenbach Library and meet me outside Memorial and we'll walk over together. Just kind of those pieces so we can really kind of get people involved in our community outside their unit. So I hope people think about it. I think it'll be a fun committee to be on, and I think it's going to be a very active committee to be on. We get to do good things, so you can join us. Any other questions? I talked a lot longer than I said I would. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, and our final topic is we're back to talking about the proposed bylaws amendment. So we do actually have a small update on this. So I'm going to bring up, since we've got a little time here, I'm going to bring up the actual two primary proposals that have come up sort of out of our discussions about changing the bylaws. So to review, our two main ideas here were to change the name to Libraries Assembly to better reflect that not everyone in Libraries Assembly is necessarily with a librarian title, since there's academic staff that are represented here that, that aren't necessarily called librarians. So we thought about changing the name to Libraries Assembly, but then it brings up the broader point of what about all of the other people that work in the libraries that are not academic staff? If we change that, is that a misnomer? And so we came up with a second idea of changing the name of the Libraries Assembly and then also exploring the feasibility of a single GLS body with a CASI arm for academic staff and some kind of USC arm for university staff. So that's about where we kind of left off. We had talked about getting out a survey to university staff and also academic staff to see what people thought about this idea. And what we ended up doing is Kara and I met with Heather Daniels, who's secretary of the academic staff, just to kind of explore like rules in terms of CASIs. Can we actually pull this out? And broadly speaking, yes. And she was pretty affirming in our idea. She said we're going about it the right way. We would definitely want to get a lot of university staff feedback in on this. We want to make sure that their needs are going to be met by such an organization. Basically, there are no rules to say we can't do this. In fact, there are two examples on campus that kind of have something mirroring this idea already. One of which is pharmacy, and their CASI basically has one seat for university staff to sit on because they basically don't have that much university staff, so it just made sense to have a kind of hybrid committee in that way. And then also LNS actually has a separate CASI and separate university staff committee, but they tend to meet together regularly more often than not. They don't tend to meet as separate entities that often. So they kind of function as one broad group. Heather did give us the contact information for folks at both pharmacy and LNS, and we can follow up with them and kind of see how they make it work. And then I think our next step after talking to them a little bit is maybe rolling out a survey, kind of coming up with questions to ask university staff. Possibly, Heather recommended maybe helping to facilitate some forums, maybe where they can talk to each other, get some folks in a room where they can discuss kind of the pros and cons of doing this. And it would probably be them running it, but maybe we can kind of carve out a space for them somehow where we can make this a little easier for them to meet with each other. Since there are going to be different considerations for university staff in terms of time they can devote to it, and whether their needs are being met the way they would need to be met. University staff also kind of representation works a little bit differently. She pointed this out. CASIs, we can always fill seats as needed throughout the year. University staff, since it's kind of district by district, they tend to go, seats tend to go unfilled if people leave, and they just stay vacant until the next year's round of elections, and they kind of fill things differently. So the flow would be a little bit different. So we would need to kind of keep those things under consideration too. Does anyone have any questions or comments about us going forward with this idea? Yes.
You just mentioned districts, so do university staff have districts that's equivalent to where for instance, we're talking about GLS. Is there a district university staff just for GLS or what?
I believe the districts work differently. They kind of work based on job role rather than kind of department affiliation. That's your understanding too? Okay. Yeah, so the districts kind of work in a pretty different way. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that someone affiliated with the GLS would necessarily be the representative. But I think having a committee that's kind of a hybrid idea like this, maybe we would be able to point it that way. Maybe we would make it a little bit more, get your names out there. Maybe you want to consider being a university staff rep and working with this larger group too. So it might be a way that we can kind of advocate for greater involvement just generally in the church governance system. Any other questions or comments? Feelings, pros and cons? And we can explore this stuff later too, of course.
I like the idea, and I'm thankful. Thanks for reaching out and figuring out that we can do this. I always wondered how better can we extend our reach, because we're really serving all library staff, even though we are essentially an academic staff organization. So thank you, and I appreciate what you're doing on this. So yay for me.
Good, thanks. Yeah, I think we've always encouraged kind of attendance and kind of participation generally from university staff, but I think actually bringing them officially into the fold somehow or another would maybe amplify those voices a little bit too. Anything else? Okay, with that, I guess we can call the meeting to a close. We are slightly ahead of schedule here, but please feel free to mingle, stick around, maybe consider going to Ad 15 a little bit. And it's 362, is that where it is? So Ad 15, 362 at quarter after. Thanks everyone. Or, is it quarter after? Oh, noon. Okay, sorry. At noon. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.